In 1519, 5 ships set sail into the unknown to achieve what every mapmaker in Europe said was impossible. Most of the men would never return, and their leader would pay for his ambition with his life, but they would change the shape of the world forever.
This is the story of Ferdinand Magellan, the man who dared to challenge the limits of the Earth. To understand the legend of Magellan, we must first look at the world he was born into. It was the late 15th century, a time when the oceans were not highways, but terrifying, uncharted voids.
Born around 1480 in the rugged mountains of northern Portugal, Ferdinand Magellan, as he was known in his native tongue, was a son of the minor nobility. At the age of 12, he was sent to the royal court in Lisbon to serve as a page to Queen Eleanor. It was here, in the halls of power, that he breathed in the salt air dreams of the Age of Discovery.
Lisbon was the center of the nautical world. Every month, ships returned from the coast of Africa or the far-off reaches of India, their holds bursting with spices that were worth more than their weight in gold. Magellan watched, listened, and learned.
He studied the charts of the greatest cartographers and mastered the science of celestial navigation. But he wasn't a man meant for the comfort of the court. He was a man of action.
By his early 20s, Magellan was a seasoned soldier and sailor. He spent years fighting for the Portuguese crown in the Indian Ocean. He was there during the bloody conquest of Malacca in 1511, a victory that gave Portugal control over the gateway to the Far East.
It was during these campaigns that he gained more than just scars. He gained a slave and companion named Enrique, who would play a pivotal role in the years to come. More importantly, he gained a conviction. He became obsessed with the idea that the Spice Islands, the legendary Moluccas, could be reached by sailing west, not east.
He believed there was a passage through the newly discovered Americas, a secret strait that would lead to a great western ocean. But when he brought this vision to King Manuel I of Portugal, he was met with cold indifference.
The king had no interest in a risky western route when his eastern route around Africa was already making him the richest monarch in Europe. After 3 separate petitions were rejected, and his loyalty was questioned over a minor injury sustained in Morocco that left him with a permanent limp, Magellan did the unthinkable. He defected.
In 1517, he traveled to Spain, Portugal's greatest rival. He presented his plan to the young King Charles I. Magellan was persuasive, intense, and possessed an ironclad certainty. He convinced the Spanish crown that the Spice Islands actually fell within the Spanish half of the world, according to the Treaty of Tordesillas. Charles gave him 5 ships, a diverse crew of over 270 men, and the title of Captain General. The fleet, known as the Armada de Molucca, was a motley collection of vessels: the Trinidad, the San Antonio, the Concepcion, the Victoria, and the tiny Santiago. From the moment they weighed anchor in September 1519, the mission was plagued by tension. The Spanish captains under Magellan's command deeply resented being led by a Portuguese traitor. They saw him as secretive and arrogant. Magellan, in turn, trusted no one.
The crossing of the Atlantic was grueling, but it was nothing compared to what waited for them along the coast of South America. As they sailed further south than any European had ever ventured, the weather turned savage. The warmth of the tropics gave way to the biting cold of the Antarctic fringe. Food began to run low. On Easter Sunday, 1520, the simmering resentment finally boiled over into an open mutiny at a place called Puerto San Julian. 3 of the 5 ships turned against Magellan. The conspirators demanded he turn back to Spain, but they had underestimated the sheer ruthlessness of their commander. Through a series of daring maneuvers and cold-blooded tactical strikes, Magellan seized back control. He didn't just suppress the mutiny, he crushed it. One captain was executed and quartered. Another was marooned on a desolate, freezing shore and left to die. Magellan had sent a clear message. The only way out of this journey was forward.
Misfortune continued to dog the expedition. The Santiago was wrecked during a scouting mission, though the crew survived. Then, in October 1520, Magellan found what he had been looking for, a narrow, treacherous opening in the coastline.
For 38 days, the remaining 4 ships navigated a labyrinth of fjords, towering glaciers, and unpredictable winds. During this passage, the crew of the San Antonio, the largest ship in the fleet carrying the bulk of the supplies, deserted and fled back to Spain.
Magellan was left with 3 ships and a starving crew, but he had done it. He had found the passage. Emerging from the darkness of the strait, he looked out upon a vast, blue expanse of water. It was so remarkably calm after the storms of the Atlantic that he named it Mar Pacifico, the Peaceful Sea. He believed the Spice Islands were only a few days away. He was tragically wrong.
The crossing of the Pacific was a nightmare of epic proportions. For nearly 4 months, they sailed across a void that was far larger than any human had imagined. They ran out of fresh food and water. Men began to die of scurvy, their gums swelling until they could no longer eat. They were reduced to eating biscuits that had turned into yellow dust crawling with worms. They hunted the rats that lived in the hold.
They even soaked the oxhide strips used to reinforce the rigging in the sea for days, then grilled them over a fire just to have something to chew on. Yet, Magellan's resolve never wavered. He remained on the quarterdeck, obsessed with his charts, driven by a religious conviction that God was guiding him to the east. Finally, in March 1521, they spotted land.
They had reached the islands of Guam and then, shortly after, the Philippines. In the Philippines, Magellan's mission shifted. He was no longer just an explorer, he became an evangelist.
He struck an alliance with Raja Hamuban, the ruler of the island of Cebu. Magellan succeeded in converting the Raja and hundreds of his followers to Christianity. He became convinced that he was an instrument of divine will, invincible under the protection of his faith. This hubris would be his undoing. When a local chieftain named Lapu-Lapu on the nearby island of Mactan refused to acknowledge the Spanish king or pay tribute, Magellan saw it as an opportunity to demonstrate the power of his god and his weapons.
Against the advice of his officers, he refused to use his ship's cannons for a shore bombardment. He wanted a fair fight to prove European superiority.
On the morning of April 27, 1521, Magellan led a small force of about 60 men through the shallow waters towards the shores of Mactan. They were met by over 1,000 warriors. The tide was out, and the Spanish were weighed down by their heavy armor in the knee-deep water. Lapu-Lapu's warriors recognized Magellan as the leader and focused their fury on him. He was hit by a poisoned arrow in the leg and a bamboo spear in the arm. Even as his men retreated to the boats, Magellan stayed behind, fighting to cover their escape. He was eventually surrounded, hacked down by scimitars, and killed in the surf. The man who had conceived the greatest voyage in history did not live to see its end. He died a world away from home. His body never recovered.
The remnants of the expedition were in chaos. With Magellan dead, the alliance with the local rulers collapsed. After a series of betrayals and further losses, the survivors realized they didn't have enough men to man 3 ships. They burned the Concepcion and continued with only the Trinidad and the Victoria. Eventually, they reached the Moluccas and loaded their hulls with the precious cloves they had traveled so far to find. The Trinidad attempted to return the way they came, but was captured by the Portuguese. That left only the Victoria, a small, leaking ship commanded by Juan Sebastian Elcano, a former mutineer who had survived Magellan's wrath at San Julian.
Elcano made a desperate gamble. Instead of turning back, he sailed west, across the Indian Ocean and around the southern tip of Africa, dodging Portuguese patrols the entire way. In September 1522, 3 years after they had left, the Victoria limped into the port of Sanlúcar de Barrameda in Spain. Of the 270 men who had departed, only 18 remained. They were skeletal, haunted, but they had done what no one else in the history of the world had ever achieved. They had circled the globe.
The legacy of Ferdinand Magellan is complex. He was a man of immense contradictions, a visionary who was also a tyrant, a brilliant navigator who was also a religious fanatic.
He didn't technically circumnavigate the world himself, but his courage and his refusal to accept the boundaries of the known world made the feat possible. His voyage fundamentally changed human understanding. He proved that the Earth was far larger than previously thought, and that all the world's oceans were connected. He discovered the strait that bears his name and identified the Magellanic Clouds, the dwarf galaxies visible from the southern hemisphere. He even discovered the need for an international dateline. Magellan's journey was the ultimate test of the human spirit against the infinite. It was a story of blood, betrayal, and the relentless pursuit of the horizon. He remains the definitive symbol of the age when humanity first reached out to grasp the true scale of its home. Subscribe for more history.